Apparently we are live, but you can't see us yet. So I appreciate everyone that has tuned in to this town hall, Americans for Citizens Voting. I think we have a very distinguished panel, and all three of the people here, I kind of have a relationship with them, and I kind of know them. But American Citizens for Voting is an organization that was started last year about a event or something that's going on, and I really had no idea that was going on. And that is that non-citizens, people within our country with green cards that are here legally, a lot of jurisdictions and states are allowing these folks to vote in certain municipal elections. And so what we wanted to do was have a panel with some noted, distinguished election experts to talk about that and to talk about just COVID in general, or not COVID, but talk about election reform in general. I was talking about COVID. I want to send out our prayers and thanks to the healthcare workers and our prayers to those that have lost families. And a lot of us are worried about COVID and what's going on, and I am to a certain extent. But I tell you what really has me worried is our elections. There are a lot of initiatives in states where they want to go to complete balloting, mail-in balloting only, which will be wrought with fraud. Um, a lot of the non-citizens that have driver's licenses or have been on rolls and they have been taken off the rolls supposedly, but a lot of them voted in our last elections. I think that so far it looks like the election of the president, it may not be in jeopardy, and it may be a time where the opposition will do anything possible to win election. And so that's what I want to focus with on this town hall with our experts. And let me first introduce who we have with us. First off, we have Christian Adams, who's the general counsel and president of the Public Interest Legal Foundation. He's also the founder of the Election Law Center, PLLC. He served from 2005 to 2010 in the voting section at the United States Department of Justice. He'll be joining us. We're also going to have Jasha McQueen. Jasha is a board member of Americans for Citizen Voting. She is also from St. Louis with me, and she is a immigration attorney. And last but not least is Mark Meuser, who ran for Secretary of State in California in 2018. He is a election law attorney in California, and this is an issue that he dealt with a couple of years ago with his election. And so I think we've got a great panel here of folks to talk about an important issue. Starting off, Jay Christian, you've written a lot of stuff. Your organization has released a lot of studies on election fraud and ballot fraud. The left always tells us that it's something that we make up to suppress the vote. Give people facts and some figures on this is a real issue.
Well, if you're just looking at non-citizen voting, or as I like to say, foreigner voting, we've been documenting this in places like Pittsburgh, Detroit, New Jersey, across sanctuary cities. And Chris, over and over again, the story is sort of one of a tragic unwittingness that people are getting on the rolls as aliens, and they're not necessarily doing it deliberately like part of a conspiracy. They're being recruited by third-party registration drives. What we do is we collect data from state election offices of what we are called canceled non-citizens, people who are knocked off the rolls because they're aliens. Usually they're self-confessed. And the reason they are is because they want their green card. They want their green card, and question 12 on the application for citizenship says, have you ever been registered to vote? So people write in and say, please take me off the rolls. And some of these letters are amazing. I thought I was registering for the student council election. They told me that I could register to vote at the DMV office, even though I'm a foreigner. All sorts of crazy stories. And it's happening. It's real. And it's not something that's a myth, like the left likes to say.
And, one thing that I've always said, when they want to give the election to non-citizens, people with green cards, I mean, imagine you're in a close school board election or a mayoral election, and you lose by, 20, 10 votes, and then you realize that, you could have lost your election to someone who is not legal to be in this country. I mean, I applaud people that are here doing it the right way and have gotten their green cards, but I think citizenship, voting entails citizenship, and you're not at that place yet. Hasha, you're a immigration attorney here in St. Louis. Give us your thoughts on that.
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions about voting, and even among immigrants. It is clear. I mean, in my mind, first of all, I'm Hispanic. I was in the military, so I voted also, when I was overseas, and so I've done quite a bit of voting in general. But I know that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about voting, and the problem is it gets very confusing even to immigrants, because they are told that they can vote in some elections and not some. And so they end up signing up and they end up screwing themselves, particularly if they don't go to see somebody who is an expert in it. I think citizenship, my mother came here from another country. She did everything that she was supposed to do. And citizenship is voting is a privilege. It's something that comes along with being a citizen. And to me, allowing non-citizens to vote on anything is ridiculous. I mean, yeah, we've got a lot of residents here, legal permanent residents that spend years waiting to get their citizenship, or they spend years waiting to get a green card, which happens. Sometimes these people wait 10, 12, 15 years. My uncle had to wait about 15 years before he got his green card. So these are extensive waiting periods. However, I want to say, I mean, you're coming here to be a citizen. You have to go through all the steps to be a citizen, and then you can vote. I mean, I think it's simple, but people make it very complicated, where people can vote in a local school board, or they can vote here, or they can vote there, and every state's different.
Mark, the argument that we hear and that I've read in these jurisdictions that are allowing this is, hey, they're here, they have green cards, they're paying taxes, they're our neighbors, they're doing all the right things. Why shouldn't they be allowed to vote?
Well, federal statute says that it is against the law to vote in a federal election, and many states have constitutions that do not allow it. California is one of the states that does not allow you to vote for state offices, but we do know that San Francisco as a city allows you to vote on a school board. So there's, what everybody has to understand is there's so many different levels here, and it starts creating a lot of confusion. And unfortunately, it's not going to be determined in the voters' favor. In 2018, we saw a priest, I think it was just across the river from where you guys are, who voted like 14 years earlier. And in 2018, they caught up with him, and he basically was deported. It didn't matter that he had 14 years of good works as a priest in Illinois. The court said you should not have voted. It was up to you to know that you weren't allowed to vote. One of the saddest stories I think I ever saw was a young lady from the Philippines went into the DMV. She had married in the Philippines an American serviceman, came back to the United States with him, went into the DMV, filled out her DMV information, had left the box blank that said, do you want to be a citizen? Do you want to vote? And she left that blank, and when she turned it in, she actually saw the DMV check that box. She didn't think much of it. She got material from the state saying, hey, here's your voting materials. She goes, well, I must be eligible to vote. The state sent me stuff. She voted, and even though her husband is in the military,
right,
she was deported. And so the thing is, if you study the cases on this in the federal area, it's a serious crime. You can be deported. You can never come back to the United States. You may not be eligible. And the way the courts have treated it is you are responsible for knowing the laws on voting. And just because a DMV official says, oh, you can vote, does not mean that you're going to be absolved from voting.
Right. I want all three of you guys to chime in on this because you're all attorneys. But Jay, Christian, explain to me, I'm not an attorney. I'll say that out front. But getting into this issue, I've learned that there seems to be probably 3 or 4 constitutional amendments that kind of explicitly say that voting is for United States citizens only. And when people learn about Americans for Citizen Voting and what we do, the people are kind of like, duh, it's a no-brainer. Why is this issue? Why is this even here? How is this even happening?
Well, you're right. The 15th Amendment, for example, talks about no citizen shall be denied the right to vote on the basis of race. How's it happening? Chris, I was testifying to Congress this year. I think it was the House Judiciary Committee hearing. It might have been the oversight. No, it was Judiciary. And I was testifying on this very issue. And all of a sudden, this congressman from Maryland named Jeremy Raskin says to me, what's wrong with allowing aliens to vote? I've written a whole law review article about this, that everybody should be allowed to vote whether you're a citizen or not. And that's when I realized we'd reached the point of lunacy. I had no idea, just like you said you had no idea, that somebody who would hold the high office of United States Congress is out there working this issue. But that's how far we've fallen.
And what we've heard about, Jasha, was, foreign interference in our election all during 2016, Russia. Well, if legal immigrants with green cards who are citizens of other countries are voting in our elections, isn't that foreign intervention in our elections?
Well, absolutely. And he's right. It is lunacy. I mean, there's very few difference legally between a lawful permanent resident and a citizen. One of the very main reasons, one of the main differences is the voting. That if you're legal permanent resident, you can't vote in elections. And once you become a citizen, then you can. So I think it is insane to say, well, you're pretty much elevating legal permanent resident where this person is just residing here and they're not giving up their citizenship of another country, and they're just staying here for a while, whether it be permanently or not. And permanently, that could be 10 years. You can come in for 2 years and leave for less than a year and come back and leave and come back.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that do that too to try to keep their legal permanent residence here. They stay here for 6 months and then they leave for another 6 months and they come back another 6 months. I mean, people do this because they don't want to lose their permanent residence. Because if you're out of the country for more than a year, then you can automatically get it revoked. And so you have a lot of these people, and you're saying, oh, these people need to vote here. I mean, they're going to another country and voting in their elections, and then they're coming here and voting in our elections. This doesn't make any sense at all. The point of citizenship, is so that you can have the privilege of voting in the governing body.
Mark, when I said in your introduction that you were a Secretary of State candidate in 2018 in California as a Republican, was this a big issue in your campaign, and did you make it issue? And just how bad is non-citizen voting in California? Is this am I blowing it out of proportion?
Well, the problem is we really don't know how bad the problem really is. And I can sit there, and I did a lot of Facebook Lives during the campaign, or Twitter Periscopes during the campaign, where I had people who were willing to go online with me and say, I'm an owner of a construction company. I have the worker permits of all my employees. I know who's a citizen. I know who's not a citizen. And on election day, I see these non-citizens coming in wearing the "I voted" stickers, or the person who worked at a farmer's market and she was registering Republicans, and across the way was a Democrat, and she would watch somebody come up and say, "I'm not a citizen. Can I register to vote? And the Democrat person says, oh yeah, just all you have to do is fill out this paperwork right here. Or, I can tell you story after story after story after story. Unfortunately,
But they're also signing up dead people and dogs, right? I mean,
I'm not going to touch that one right now. So, but the thing that we see is, and J. Christian Adams is a much better expert on this than I am, but I think we both agree that the MVRA actually says that it's the duty of the state to ensure that only citizens are on the voting rolls. Unfortunately, the courts are not following what Christian Adams and I think is the plain meaning of that there is a duty by the government to ensure that only citizens are on the voting roll. And because the government is not actually checking that database with various public available databases, it's making it hard. I mean, like in the state of California, 449,000 people in 1 year said that they were not a citizen and thus should not serve on a jury. But we're not taking that database, known database of 449,000 people, and comparing it with the voter registration database. And in the state of California, the primary source that you get for jury duty is the voter registration data, but then it's supposed to be offset with the DMV data, but the DMV knows whether you're a citizen or not, so they can take away from that. So the thing is, we know that there are government available databases out there that show if somebody's a citizen, but we don't have public officials who are actually comparing the voter registration rolls with whether somebody's a citizen or not. And because we don't have that information, we are left just hearing the stories like Pennsylvania, where 10,000 people, it was discovered, were on the voter rolls and had voted, but who were not citizens, and they figured it out through the DMV, errors. We heard last year about what was going on in Texas. There's a lot of things that, because we're not checking, it creates a lot of concern about the integrity of the election. And so what our public officials in Padilla in California are doing is, well, if I don't check, then I don't know. And so we're leaving it to groups like J. Christian Adams' group, where they have found, I think it was, this may be a little older study, but they found like 214 people in San Diego who had removed themselves from the list. Yeah. How many more people are on there and voting? We don't know, and that's because the government is not actually verifying citizenship before they put you on the voter rolls.
If you listen to the media, when you and I've heard critics tell me that, this is just some wedge issue. This is just another way of conservatives or Republicans to tamp down the vote. But we did a poll about 9 or 10 months ago, and the results were really kind of surprising to me. The more conservative voters were in favor of changing state constitutions to flat out say that you must be a United States citizen to vote. But it was favorable among African Americans. It was favorable among Democrats. It was favorable across all demographics, maybe not at the same level, but it was really surprising to me. There's a person that I work with at the radio station who she is left-leaning, and I was kind of joking with her. I gave her a sample. I gave her a copy of the poll, and she brought it back to me later, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, that's reasonable. I can agree with that. That you should be a citizen to vote." So, why do you think this? Why do you think this is not getting more traction?
Well, I think that you are on a winning issue, Chris. I mean, most people think citizenship should mean something, and that's the ticket to participation. I mean, here's the other thing. State officials have tried this, and they get sued immediately. For example, Secretary of State Kobach was sued by the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, so was Alabama, so was the Election Assistance Commission. Ken Paxton in Texas, the Attorney General, was sued. They had to stop that citizenship verification program. I mean, look, we're suing the state of Pennsylvania right now to get those records of non-citizens on the rolls. We've been fighting them in federal court for over a year. We have some good rulings. We still don't have the records. So this is a nationwide fight, and people believe that only citizens should be voting in our elections. And that's why the movement you guys are working on is going to succeed.
You know, we were very ambitious at the beginning of this. We had probably 8 or 9 states that we were trying to get this on the ballots. We've been successful to get it on in Florida, Colorado, and Alabama. But one state that was really surprising was Georgia. They didn't pass it in their legislature to pass it. Georgia and states like that have had a very great Hispanic influx, and a lot of the Democrats or a lot of the elected officials down there are scared to cross those voters. Jasha, those voters, even though they may think that they don't want this, I mean, do you think the majority of Hispanic voters want people that are non-citizens voting in elections?
I don't think so. I think a lot of the reasons, look, I've got clients that are Hispanic and they own Hispanic businesses, and I have people that I know that are documented and undocumented, you know. So I know a lot of people in the Hispanic community. I'll tell you, most people, I mean, most every country does this. This is not unusual, you know. It's not unusual for the countries to say, hey, we want citizens voting in the elections, not non-citizens. I mean, this is very basic. I think that maybe the media or people that are against this or politicians have some, maybe they're afraid, maybe they think that they're going to get some pushback from the Hispanic community or other communities. But you've got to understand that people that come from other countries understand that their own country does this. I mean, this is not unusual.
Mark, am I being alarmist, thinking that COVID may be the opportunity that another party needs to steal an election, or is it just overblown? You ran recently. You're from California. I mean, am I blowing this out of proportion, or should we be worried about this election being stolen?
Well, in 2016, Democrat-leaning lawyers filed 6 different lawsuits in the months leading up to the election to try to change the rules of how the elections were run in ways that were favorable to one particular party. As of today, there's been about 24 such lawsuits already filed leading up to the 2020 election, and those same lawyers are bragging that they have another 15 to 18 lawsuits that they're planning on filing. Right now, you may have heard of the saying, sue until you're blue. That is not just a saying. That really is the Democrat playbook for 2020, is they are going out there and they're suing to remove any integrity issues that they think that they possibly can if it will help them win more seats. And they've basically been caught in the media proclaiming that because of their successful lawsuits in North Carolina, they think they're going to flip 2 seats in North Carolina, and that they are bringing 4 lawsuits in the state of Texas because they think that that will result in them picking up 6 congressional seats in the state of Texas. They are being very strategic about their lawsuits right now. You heard that there's a lawsuit that just went to the Supreme Court over COVID and mail-at-home ballots and some of the things that they want, where even if it's has a postmark after the election, they still want that ballot to be counted.
But we won. We won tonight.
Yeah, good.
Excellent.
But there's just some crazy stuff that's going on out there, and you know we have to be vigilant.
Yeah.
We have to be very vigilant what's going on with this. There's a very concerted attack going on nationwide to destroy the integrity of our elections, and you guys are just hitting on one of the many issues, and we're grateful for your effort of bringing these issues to the light of the common people.
Well, I appreciate it, because I am worried. We're about to wrap up, but before I wrap up, I want each one of you guys to kind of give us your social media and how it is the best way for them to reach you and get more information on what you guys do.
You can get me at Twitter at electionlawctr, electionlawctr. Or you can email me at adams@publicinterestlegal.org, publicinterestlegal.org, Adams.
Jasha, give folks your information, and if you don't mind, tell them the other project that you're involved with that's very close to your heart as well.
Oh yeah, and I'm also pro hoc vice in California, Mark. So
Okay.
it's been an interesting situation for me. It's a different world over there, I'll tell you, even practicing, it's a different world. I'm in a case right now in California. It's a high profile case. It's a Sofia Vergara versus Nick Loeb. I'm representing Nick Loeb in that, and it's a embryo custody battle, basically. I have represented Nick. I also had my own case in Missouri, which I lost, which was bizarre. But the frozen embryo situation is, you know, when you are together with your partner and then you create these frozen embryos and then you split up and then you have an agreement and then people don't know what to do at that point with the frozen embryos. I actually had an agreement that said if we ever got a divorce, I would get the 2 remaining embryos, and the judge threw it out in Missouri. So it seems to me that these agreements don't mean anything. After I started looking into it, I saw that basically if you wanted to save your embryos, you didn't stand a chance, but they found every reason to not hold up the agreement. But if you wanted to terminate, they said, well, you sign an agreement. So it's kind of an interesting area of law. I've been in a few cases across the country doing this now because I'm somewhat of an expert in it. And California is my latest and greatest exploit there. But my Twitter is know-it-all law. Yeah, know-it-all law. And then definitely anybody can get a hold of me at JASHA, that's my name, Jasha, at mcqkzl.com. That's mcqkzl.com.
Thank you. And Mark, what are you working on? Is there another run for office in your future? Is there a big case we're going to be hearing on the news with your name on it soon?
We will find out about future cases, and I have made no commitments on whether I'm running again until after we get through the 2020 elections. But my YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, they all pretty much are my name, Mark Meuser, Meuser. I think Facebook actually is Mark P. Moyer, but other than that, you can pretty much track me down by just looking for my name, Mark Meuser, Meuser, and I am on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
Excellent. Well, tonight I want to thank my 3 guests for taking time out of their busy social calendar tonight. I know they had a lot of things planned, but they canceled them just for us, so I just appreciate that. I also appreciate everyone who watched or listened tonight. The Americans for Citizens Voting website is onlycitizens.vote. I implore you to contact your state representatives and legislators and tell them that you want your state constitution to state that only U.S. citizens should vote in our elections. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. Stay safe and wash your hands.